Hello, my name is Galactic from Galactic's Tutorials, and in this video I will be showing you how to make art in GIMP with or without a drawing tablet.
You think that's nasty, pal? I'll show you.
Now, if you haven't seen my last video, which briefly runs over all the basics in GIMP, then I suggest watching it, but if you already have a basic knowledge of GIMP, then continue with this video. So before we go into anything, we need to open up GIMP and create a new file. Now, it's important to note that in order to draw things in great detail, we need quite a bit of room, so things don't look pixelated or blurry. To do that, make the file size at least 1000 by 1000. I'm making it 1080 by 1920 pixels. Also, we need to go into advanced options and change the X resolution and the Y resolution. Change it to about 300. Now, what does this 300 mean, you might ask? Well, this number translates to pixels per inch. This means for every inch there are 300 pixels. The reason we made it 300 is because 300 pixels per inch allows for a lot of detail, but isn't so detailed that it causes a lot of lag when you draw. So then fill in the image with white and then click OK. Now, there are three basic ways of creating art in GIMP. Two of them require a drawing tablet, but one of them only requires a mouse. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, a drawing tablet looks like this. It's basically a pad that plugs into your computer, and you can use it as a mouse or pencil by drawing on it with this pen. You can buy one of these cheap ones from Amazon.com for about $60. Mine is the Wacom Bamboo Pen Tablet, but there are more expensive and better ones out there. Anyway, the first of the two drawing methods I'm talking about require you to have a tablet. The last one doesn't, and you can draw with just your mouse and create fantastic art like this. But let's go over the first two methods first. So the first method is the sketch method. First, we must get our tablet to be recognized by the GIMP program. To do that, make sure your tablet is connected to your computer. Then, click the GIMP tab and click Input Devices. Then, click the icon that looks like a paintbrush. Mine says Quartz Pen. Go to Mode and change where it says Disabled and make it say Screen. Then click Save. Now, you can use your tablet with GIMP. To test this out, double-click the paintbrush tool. Then, where it says Dynamics, change the dynamic to Pressure Opacity. Then, draw lightly around your screen. Try to apply pressure to your pen when drawing. If it got darker when you applied pressure, then your tablet was successfully paired with GIMP. And now, we can explain what's going on here. So there are 5 tools we will be using for the sketch method. These tools are the paintbrush tool, the ink tool, the dodge and burn tool, the smudge tool, and the eraser tool. So the paintbrush tool simply acts as a paintbrush by drawing wherever you draw. The paintbrush tool uses your foreground color as your ink. Mine happens to be blue, as you see here. With the paintbrush tool, we can change the brush shape by clicking this and choosing a few brushes. We can also change the size of the brush here. We will not change the aspect ratio and the angle. Those must stay at 0 though. We can also apply dynamics. Now basically these change how the brush works or draws depending on which one you select. For our purposes, we will change the brush size between 3.0 and 5.0. We will be using 3 brushes. Those brushes are hardness 050, hardness 100, and pencil scratch. You can use these brushes interchangeably. Which one you use regularly is simply personal preference. Personally, I like hardness 100 and hardness 050. We will also change the dynamics. Click on the dynamics button, then click on the bottom right-hand corner and click this dynamics button. Now, over here, we will create a new custom dynamic. To do that, click the paper icon. Name this Pressure Opacity and Size. Then click these 2 boxes where it says pressure opacity and pressure size. Then close these two tabs. Now go back into dynamics and click pressure opacity and size. Now it should be very comfortable to sketch pictures right now. Now that it's comfortable to draw, I'm going to sketch a line art. If you mess up, you can simply use the eraser tool or click the undo button a few times to correct your mistakes. An easier way to erase, though, is to simply click the X key on your computer. This switches your foreground and background colors as seen here, so you can erase with the paintbrush tool. To stop erasing, you would have to click X again. Now that our sketch method has its basic shape, you want to finalize it to make it look neater. To do that, click this icon here and make a new layer. Make the layer transparent and click OK. Now you should go and double click the ink tool over here. Make sure the opacity is 100, then click smooth stroke. Leave the quality at 20 and the weight at 50. Then go over to size and make it between 1.0 and 2.0. I'm making it 1.0. Then rename the transparent layer you just made by right-clicking it and clicking Edit Layer Attributes. Rename it to Line Art. Now trace over your sketch. For all the curvy parts, use one smooth continuous stroke. Take your time. For all the hard edges, such as this, make individual strokes that meet up at angles, like so. If you can't see your ink because the sketch is too dark below, then simply change the color of the sketch by using the fill tool and filling your sketched lines with light blue or red. Once you're done, make another layer by clicking here, except this time make it a white layer. Then drag that layer under the line art. Now when you do this, the line art is probably going to look a little stupid, but now we are going to fix that and make it look a lot better. To do that, rename the white layer to Coloring and Shading. Then select the paintbrush tool again. Make the size roughly 20, turn the dynamics off, and select the hardness 050 brush. Then select your base colors. For the sake of the video and simplicity, I'm going to make mine red and blue. After you select your base colors, you can start coloring in your picture. Don't worry about shading or being accurate yet, though. We'll cover that after we fill in the basic colors first. Once you've added your base colors, you can start shading. To shade, simply determine where the light is coming from. For us, we'll make it from the right. Then, double-click the Dodge and Burn tool. Keep the hardness at 050 and the size at 20. Make sure dynamics are off. Keep the opacity at 100 and make the exposure 100 as well. Then select Dodge. Dodge makes the colors you go over brighter. To make certain colors brighter using Dodge, click Shadows or Highlights. Shadows make darker colors like blue brighter. Highlights make lighter colors like red brighter. You should only use highlights for shiny objects like metals or liquids for realistic effect. Since we covered our image with base tones, there's no need to select mid-tone option. Now we'll select the Burn option. The Burn option makes whatever area we want darker, or in other words, gives it shadow. We'll toggle between highlights and shadows while using the Burn tool. Usually, I don't like to use a Dodge and Burn tool for shading the entire picture. What I normally do is I'll use it once to get the shading color scheme, and then I'll select that color and just paintbrush the areas I want shaded because it's easier. Now we've successfully gotten the basic areas shaded. When you're done, take the eraser tool, make the size about 5, and the brush 100, dynamics off, and just erase the extra color outside of the line art. If you want, you can right-click over here and flatten the image. Then, if anything looks off to you, you can use the smudge tool over here to blend in the outline with the colored layer. Make sure you use a small brush for this though. You don't want to blur the edges too much. So congratulations, you've just drawn your first full picture with the sketch method. To export it, just go to File, Export, and we'll export it as sketchmethod.jpg. Please note that the sketch method is one of the easiest methods to animate in. If you want to know the basics of animating in GIMP, then you can click this video over here that I made. It just covers the absolute basics and the mechanisms in GIMP. Now for the blob method, or the painting method of drawing. The blob method is for semi-realistic drawings / paintings, or realistic paintings. You can create pictures like this. To start, let's create a new file, at least 1000 by 1300 pixels per inch. Also, open up a reference picture similar to the one you will be drawing. For me, I'm using a picture of our Ogre Lord Shrek. We'll place it on the bottom left of our screen. Anyway, go back to the new file you just created. For this method, we're going to be using the paintbrush tool here. I suggest using size 10 or 20, opacity 100, hardness 100 for the brush, and pressure opacity for the dynamic. Instead of drawing an outline, we will just be putting blobs of color on the screen. Since we are drawing Shrek, we will be putting blobs of yellow, brown, black, and various green colors around the screen using our brush. Remember to keep lighting and shading in mind when choosing colors. Constantly look at the proportions of your sketch and see if they match where you want the colors to be. Please note that this isn't supposed to look detailed at this point. It's going to look very messy, but that's okay. We are just laying down the basic colors. The important thing is to get the proportions correct and the basic color scheme correct. Once we have our base colors down, lower the opacity to 75 or 80%. Then start coloring in between your base colors. You might have to make your brush slightly smaller though. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to try and make the colors look continuous. What I do personally is just click the color picker tool, go into its tool options, and increase the radius to about 5 or 15. As you can see, it averages these two colors and makes it your foreground color. Then I use that color to draw in between the two colors I've sampled. It works surprisingly well, but if you want, you could just cite what colors make the image look continuous. It's still going to look a bit blobby though, but do not touch the smudge tool. That will come later. If you need to add detail in places like the nose or the ears, then I suggest bringing the opacity up to about 90% and making the brush size smaller and filling out those detailed areas. After you did that, then bring the opacity down to 50%. This time, softly smooth out the colors with your paintbrush by using a circular motion like I'm doing here. Once you have all the colors and most of the detail nicely down, lower the opacity of the brush to 25%, change the brush shape to hardness 0.25, and change the size to about 10 or 7, with smaller areas use about 3 or 5, and lightly blend the colors together. Also, you can go back and forth with the smudge tool while you're doing this. This helps the blending process. Then, when all the colors look smooth, you can go back over your image with brush hardness 0.75, opacity 95, and size 3 to sharpen the look of your image by taking out overlapping areas. Now, the blob method is a very, very intuitive process. It's difficult to approach this logically and systematically, so you can really just go with your gut feeling on what brush sizes to use and other things like that. But if you want more in-depth explanation on this, then I suggest clicking the third link in the description. It provides a fantastic explanation on this method of digital painting, and I highly recommend checking it out. Don't worry if your image comes out a little dumb. This method takes a lot of practice. Let's do the path tool method now, or the mouse method. This method just requires that you have a computer mouse. You don't need a tablet for this one. And you can create art like this Legend of Zelda picture I made. To start, we'll create yet another file 1000 by 1000 and 300 pixels per inch. You can make your image larger, like 2000 by 2000. I just like using this for smaller file size. Now, there are two techniques to this method, and both use the path tool. First, we will be going over FreeGIMP's method. If you want more info on it, click the fourth link in the description. Anyway, we'll be making this picture of a mushroom. To do that, click the Paths tool and open up its tool options. Then select Design. Then create a new transparent layer. Now, go on your screen and create an outline with the Paths tool of the image you want to make. If your image has a lot of curves, then just put straight lines where there would be curves. For example, I made a box shape. Don't worry, we will be adding in the curves later. If you mess up, you can drag the points or just click Delete and then click back again. To complete your outline, go to the tool options and click Edit. Then connect the last dot with the first one. Now we'll start to add the curves to your outline. To do that, go into tool options and make sure Edit is still selected. Then click the lines that you want curved on your outline and drag them. This obviously curves them, and you can curve them however you want. To delete a curve, just click the Delete key. This is a very intuitive process as well, and will take quite a while, so you must have patience. Then, once you've made an accurate outline, click Selection to Path. Then, fill in the picture with your predominant color. For mine, it's going to be red. I'll fill it in with Edit, Fill with foreground color. If you want to make an outline though, then fill it in with black and shrink the selection using Edit, Shrink. Now make sure you shrink it by however many pixels you want the thickness of the outline to be. For me, I'm just going to make it 5 pixels. And then fill in the shrunken selection with red or another color. Then do Select None. Anyway, now that we have the outline done, we can start filling in the other shapes in the picture. So go back into the Paths tool and click Design, and repeat the same exact process that we did before, except now we're going to do it with smaller shapes like the eyes as seen here, or the circles. Please note that when coloring this, you can use the Gradient tool and blend it. I'm going to blend from foreground to background. I'll make my foreground color white and my background color gray. Then I'll drag from here to here, and it makes a nice gradual shade, which is useful in some pictures. Now this method is very useful for people who want to draw but don't have a tablet, although it does take a lot of time to master and can be quite tedious. Now there is also another way to draw with your mouse, except you must first draw something in real life and then scan that sketch to your computer. As you can see, I just scanned this picture. Now this method is about creating a line art and coloring and shading it with just a mouse. Now to do that, make sure your sketched image is opened up in GIMP first. Then click the Paintbrush tool. Turn off the dynamic and make the brush hardness 100 and the size from 2 to 5 pixels. Then create a new transparent layer. Now make a point on part of your sketch with a paintbrush. Then hold Shift on your keyboard and move your mouse to another part of the image and click again. Repeat this process multiple times. While this might be a bit choppy, it is extremely easy to create an outline in GIMP. It's called the shift-click method, and basically what happens is when you click on a point and click shift from it and then click again, it creates a straight line. And if you make a bunch of smaller straight lines, then you can make the illusion that you've created a curve, like so. If you don't like the look of the shift-click method, then you can use the Paths tool instead to make an outline. Like before, we will make a rough outline without any curves. Once we are done, then click Edit and drag the lines to make them curvy. Then, to create the actual outline, go to the Paths tool options and click Stroke to Path. Select Stroke Line, Solid Color, Line Width, about 2.0, and go into Line Style and select Round and Round. Then click Stroke. As you can see, it made a nice outline. Then to color it in, just use the Fill tool and use the Dodge and Burn tool like we did with the sketch method, as well as the Smudge tool. Personally, I found drawing in GIMP to be very difficult and the information on how to do it very unorganized when I first started. So I thought I'd make this tutorial to help anyone beginning in GIMP. If you found my tutorial too fast or didn't have enough detail, I linked a few other tutorials in the description below for further instruction. I hope this video helped you, and I will see you next time. GIMP.
Beat time.